Okay,
Hi.
right there.
Hi.
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
You?
I'm good, sir. How are you doing? Actually, yeah. Thanks for coming back to me. 3 days.
Katie Souls.
Arnell Quinn.
Andy Miller,
Bob Ganesi.
Joy McCoy.
thank you. Take a motion on the consent agenda, which is the minutes from 8/24.
So moved.
Second. It's Joyce.
All in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, so open forum. Do we have anybody with an open forum? We have other business for the board. Yeah. So, do you look like anybody on Zoom or anything? So. Okay.
Nope.
We'll move right into discussion of possible action. Resolution 2023-0701 recommending approval of a conditional use permit for 214 Byers Avenue. Take that staff report.
Yeah, Bob, Alyssa is online with the presentation.
Oh, listen, hold on. Let me make you a co-host here.
All right, can you hear me?
You can, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. Thank you. So as mentioned, this is a conditional use permit request at 214 Byers Avenue. And the request is to construct a 2-story addition to the existing single-family house with a reduced front setback. And approval of the conditional use is required in order to construct the addition because single-family homes are designated as a conditional use in the underlying B zone district, not permitted in the mixed overlay district, but I'll go into that shortly. And additionally, the applicants are requesting to reduce the front setback. And so the conditional use permit is the only request tonight. There are no additional land use approvals required with this. Although it will, Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. And just a little bit of background on the applicant here tonight as Sarah Weimer. Property owners are Nicholas and Karen Crabb. The address, of course, is 214 Byers Avenue, and the existing zoning is business with the Riverwalk mixed use overlay. And oh, this is a typo down here. Sorry. Of course, the request is for an expansion to the existing garage or to the existing house. Here is the property outlined in red. Oops. And then you can see here in the zoning map, zone business with that kind of hatched Riverwalk mixed use overlay, sorry. And the property is 0.23 acres. And just going into the zoning and land use of it. So section 192340 does permit single family dwelling units with approval of conditional use in the B district. And again, they are not permitted in the Riverwalk mixed use overlay district. So those are now considered a non-conforming use. Section 19-250 does require a 20-foot front setback, a 10-foot rear setback, and a 5-foot side setback. And then worth noting for the expansion of the front porch. So section 19-270 does allow covered porches to project up to 6 feet into the front yard. The applicant is still requesting to to reduce that. So they want to do a 9-foot for that expansion, a 9-foot front setback. And the proposal does comply with all of their zone district standards, including the minimum lot area with an open space. And section 19.255 contains development standards for the RMU overlay. However, those standards only apply to the commercial and mixed use, as well as multifamily dwelling uses. As I mentioned, single family uses are not permitted, so those would not apply. And here's the proposed conditional site plan. The proposed expansion is highlighted in red. And then on here, we included the approximate required setback. So the 20-foot front setback, you can see where that would extend into it. They are proposing a 17-foot, 10-inch front setback as opposed to the required 20-foot setback. And then here's the area for the front porch, and that's about a 9-foot setback. And then over here on the east side is the 5-foot side setback. So it does comply with that. And here are the proposed elevations. It should blend pretty well with the existing house. Just a bit of background on the referral. We did send this to referral agencies on June 28th, and we received comments back on July 7th. And we did send those back to the applicant on July 19th. And for the public notice, section 19.1.215 does not require a notice for the planning commission meeting. We will follow the code requirements for the 200-foot notification of property owners at least 14 days prior to the hearing for the August 16th board meeting. And then on to the criteria. The first one is whether the conditional use is compatible with the adjacent zone districts, and staff did find that that the request would be compatible. The proposed site plan includes an addition to the garage, and it shouldn't have any impacts on, traffic generation, noise, anything like that. The second criteria is whether the conditional use meets all the existing criteria for minimum lot area setbacks, building height, parking, and signage. And staff finds that the request does meet the criteria. The architectural elevations submitted do show conformance with the maximum building height. We mentioned that the lot area, it does comply with that. Setbacks, of course, they're requesting a reduction for that.
One second.
Sure.
Are you turning on? Hold on, question.
So I'm sorry, number 2, it says minimum building height, but it should be maximum building height, right?
Yes, maximum building height. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, maximum building height of 45 feet. I apologize.
Thanks, no worries.
Thank you. So they are requesting that reduction in the setbacks. Staff did not find that there would be a substantial impact to parking. It'll include, this is for a garage, so it will not affect parking. And of course, there's no signage included with this request. The third is that the conditional use permit will not change the predominant character of the neighborhood, including scale and bulk. And staff did find that the request, it would not change the character of the neighborhood, which consists of other single family dwelling units. So staff does feel that the request is minimal and it shouldn't have any substantial negative visual impacts. The fourth is that it will not overburden the capacities of the existing streets, utilities, parks, schools, or other public services. And staff finds that it meets this criterion. The use of the property is not changing with the request, of course, so it would meet that one. The fifth is that it will not cause an unacceptable effect of the use on light and air, transportation facilities, schools, and parks. Again, it's just an addition to the existing house, so staff did find that it meets this criterion. The sixth is that it will not cause an unacceptable effect upon traffic congestion or impact pedestrian safety. Again, only proposes to expand the existing home, and it, after construction, should not have any impacts on traffic or pedestrians. The seventh is that it will not contribute to an undervalued use of the property, and staff does find that Approval of the conditional use would serve to maximize the value of the property by allowing the expansion. The 8th is conformance with the comprehensive plan. Some of the main goals that staff feels that this complies with is promoting sustainable development, which meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And staff considered that the property owners have lived in Fraser for several years and operate a local business. And the proposed addition would help the owners better utilize their property in a way that meets their needs without complying or compromising the character of the area. And additionally, that property should be developed in a manner that preserves and provides open space. And the conditional use site plan, it does exceed the requirement for 35% open space, even with the addition. So still about 75% open space on the lot with that. And then the last one is that there's a history of compliance by the applicant and or property owner with the code and any prior conditions regarding the subject property. And again, the property owners have lived at the property for about 6 years and have demonstrated a history of compliance. And they have also submitted all the required documents for the conditional use permit, which comply with the requirements. And with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the conditional use permit to the Board of Trustees. And that concludes staff's presentation. I know the applicant is online and I believe the property owners are present tonight, so I can take any questions and they can too. Thank you.
I have a question for you. So with the garage, because it's in that commercial zone.
Mhm.
Will that be okay for them to use eventually for commercial purposes also? Even though right now we're approving an addition to a pump.
Right.
But
I don't think the intent is to use it for commercial purposes, but maybe I'll have the applicant or property owner touch on that.
it's more of potential in the future. And I'm thinking about the kind of zoning changes or the code changes we're going to be looking at,
Mhm.
clarify this stuff. That's fine. That's fine with asking.
We will be kind of using it for storage for Canberra, like merchandise and everything.
Makes perfect sense.
Could you introduce yourself and where you-
I'm sorry, yeah.
And is the microphone on?
Green light. Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay, it's just not here.
So I'm Nick. Last name Crab. I'm the owner of Canberra Brewing and the property owner.
Thank you, sir.
And the office will basically be my office for the business as well. And also the business is technically the registered address for the parent company of Canberra, which is Canberra Brewery Holdings. So that's technically the business address.
And do you rent out the tax building or is that now?
Yeah, it's a full-time for local employees only.
They don't want to tax. People here seeing the fan.
Yeah.
Now, single families on your lot, is that correct? We have a family back in the alleys on your lot.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Behind the fence, but it's technically still the same lot.
You know, this guy parking out the alley, yes, it's something homes.
Yep.
I was just wondering if the entrance to the garage spans to the front door or just to the garage.
Repeat the question, sorry.
Yeah, I'm just wondering for like future parking reasons, if the driveway itself
Mhm.
goes to the garage, or is it longer to the front door?
Could you put the site plan up by chance?
Yep, I'm just grabbing it here. 1 second.
Yeah, the front door, basically, it's east facing now, and it will be changed to north facing. So I believe the driveway will extend to the front porch area heading up into the new front door.
Is your question, can you fit cars in front of the garage door and not hit the road?
The entrance to the home.
We should be able to, yeah. because that should all be
Wondering
concrete.
How long the driveway was and what, real estate it would take. As far as parking, there's just a driveway that into the street that's the section of the street that people won't be able to park on.
Well, that's 16 feet in front of the garage, looks like, to the edge of, that's to the edge of, yeah, so basically,
Yeah.
your property lines out. To the end there.
And currently we fit my trailer, my camper and 4 cars if needed. So we have plenty of parking, and then we also have that whole street parking that we need utilize our lawn for parking. I don't know if you guys know Matt's house, but he has that whole area in front of his house that he snow plows and everything for parking. So we have that on the option as well. So
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
This is not a question for the applicant, but a general question for my benefit. I've read through the certificate and on one hand, it's a conditional use for the business zone. However, it's kind of confusing because the Riverwalk overlay district also infringes into this area. And it says in that write-up that it's residential development is prohibited. So how do we prioritize between a piece of property that is dual zone? That has a business zoning,
Existing use is a residential.
Yeah, so
it has a business zoning and it has the Riverwalk zoning, is it because it's basically a non-conforming property now? Is that right? So how do we adjudicate the 2 zonings?
yeah, about so almost all of the homes that are businesses in that Riverwalk
Yeah.
overlay are non-conforming.
Right, I realize that. There's
Ben
a lot of
mentioned, Ben mentioned at the last trustee or trustees meeting that there's some confusion between the 2, the overlay and the pre-existing zoning. So part of our meeting tonight is to talk about some of that. So after this, we are going to talk about how to fix that. The purpose of it was originally, from what I remember, was to help people transition as they go forward from all residential in those areas to having more commercial and having residential on top of the commercial. That's what the ultimate goal of when we did the overlay. So that's what we're going to try to rectify in the next 4, 5, 10 meetings. And how do we work with folks that do have an existing home, and how do we help them keep their property rights and their ownership rights at the same time without saying, oh, by the way, now when you sell the house, you have to sell it as a commercial building, and so they have to be commercial, even though it's set up as a house. So it could be take 10, 15 years to unwind what we did back in the 1950 to 2023.
Okay,
So it's a good process.
okay, thank you, I appreciate the bring me up to speed here on that. The other thing is, he's requesting 2 variances, right? A variance on the distance for the front setback and a variance for the distance to the front porch.
Right, and if we did a commercial building there, you could have 0 setbacks on all.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I just want to clarify one thing. It's not a variance. The code
Yeah.
is set up so that the conditional use permit can provide reduced lot size and setbacks, as well as its use.
okay. But by giving him the conditional use permit, we're also giving him the variances, so to speak.
Except it's not a variance. It's
Okay.
a variance is a separate process.
Got it, okay.
Right, thank you. I forget that.
You know, and the other thing with this is, the setback on the porch lines right up with the profile on the existing house.
Right, it
So-
doesn't change the distance from the
It
house.
really doesn't change much
Right,
there at all.
okay,
And in addition, farther back on the house. Yeah.
Yep, the
Yeah.
setback reaches back into the yard.
And the way to look at this is Aspen had the same problem back in the day, Breckenridge had the same problem. And the way they got around it is at some point, the house was more valuable as a commercial lot than it was a house, so they just scraped the houses and built commercial. So that's kind of the process that we would do. My opinion, so
That's because we become an expert.
well, if you look at recent house prices, we're on our way. At least Steamboat, at least we come to Steamboat.
I had no other questions, and his architectural views look really nice to me. So, yeah.
The entire house will have new siding put on it, not just the addition. So current situation is not ideal. So we need to basically redo the entire thing, so it basically look like it's always been that way.
Be careful what you find when you move.
We already know it's gonna be bulls. So.
And the garage door, because it's so big and pleasant, I should have tried to do something kind of lovely with that, so it doesn't just look like a big white.
The wood look, I think we didn't do windows, but we did wood look. And it'll match the front door as well. So
Nice.
well, that whole property is gonna spruce up that area a little bit more. Our house is kind of a sore thumb, if you will, right now. And it won't be after this.
Oh, we got a lot of sore thumbs now.
It's like looking over at Matt's house from our front window is kind of like, that house is really cute. I wish I was like that. So
It's on that's in process, but all that he had left of that house when he started in the remodel after his demo was the roof.
That's what he was saying, yeah.
Everything underneath was gone. Yeah, so pretty crazy to look at. I'm glad the wind didn't come up for a few days. So, I know he's done a beautiful job in that house. So.
Yeah.
Well, this would be a nice addition in the neighborhood. I should note that I live a few doors down around the corner, so I appreciate what you're doing there, so.
Absolutely.
So any other questions? We entertain a motion.
It's a motion to approve resolution 2023-0701, recommending approval for conditional use permit for 214 Marlin Avenue to our board.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Nick.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right,
Motion
you
to-
just thought you were busy.
You can just set it over here. Just set it down over here. It's fine. Yeah, I got it.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You two guys.
Good luck with your ring, all the Riverwalk stuff out.
Stick around. Okay, so the next agenda item is a workshop on zoning. You didn't really have any printed material or anything.
No,
Yeah.
so, Ben and Michael, directed Bill and I, late last week to put this together for you guys today. And so, we've been working on that. We didn't have anything to present to you beforehand, so I apologize for that, but, Will has a really nice presentation, and it's gonna kind of go over our proposal to kind of, resolve this conflict between, the business district and the Riverwalk overlay district. So, with that, I'll let, Will take over.
Hi, everybody. And if I can, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Yep.
Alrighty, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. As Julie mentioned, on the docket for tonight, and hopefully you kind of can see some of the reasons why with the previous case you heard, but the proposal is basically to take this overlay zone district and just convert it into its own district. So instead of being overlaid on top of now just the business district, it would be its own standalone entity.
And what happens to the business district?
So the business district, and I'll get into a map that'll kind of show the boundaries of a lot of this, but the business district, essentially those pieces that are not overlaid by the RMU would remain the same. And then the Riverwalk mixed use overlay would essentially take the place of that business. And I'll kind of explain the thought process in some of these as we go through as well. But so kind of getting into the why. Julie kind of mentioned that direction that we received, which a lot of came out of the Board of Trustees meeting last week. And then additionally, with the rezoning of properties along Clayton Court earlier this year, the Riverwalk mixed use overlay now only encompasses the business district. There's no other underlying zoning on any other properties. So it doesn't really, bridge any sort of gaps between different districts or have, different intents in different locations or anything of that nature. The next one, which kind of came up again with the last cases, these existing inconsistencies between the business district and the Riverwalk overlay, which can create confusion for applicants as well as staff on how to administer the code. And then finally, the positive of all this is another opportunity to get some more ground floor commercial activation along those major corridors. So Highway 40 and then Clayton Court for more ground floor commercial. So in looking at the code for the overlay district, there's kind of three overarching areas that are part of this overlay district that if it was to be converted to its own zone district would need to be addressed. So the first one is converting the overlay district into a standard zone district and then confirming the boundary of that new Riverwalk mixed use district. So this one, just as an aside for it, is that, taking away that Riverwalk mixed use district or overlay district doesn't necessarily just automatically convert these properties into this new district. There would also be a rezoning process that goes on after this whole piece is completed. So that's just kind of an additional piece to that. And I can go into that more if anyone has any questions once we get to it, but that's that one. The next one is clarifying the allowed uses in the new district. And then the last one is the actual development standards. So all the nitty gritty nuts and bolts of how the district functions. Okay, so here is the map of this area. So the diagonal line, all of the red is your business district. And you can see the diagonal line is where your Riverwalk mixed use overlay district is. And then the vertical lines to the north are that Victoria Village overlay district. So just to help with geography for this, basically from Railroad Avenue over to Clayton Court, that's your east-west boundaries, and then Park Avenue and Mill Avenue are your north-south for the most part. And then on the right is a picture from your strategic plan where it kind of shows the areas that have these goals for this Riverwalk district about walkable mixed-use development and creating good pedestrian spaces and things like that. And you can see them having connections and influence into the area kind of west of Highway 40. All right. Anyone have any questions on that before I go forward?
Not a question, just a comment. Where you have that lower left-hand business district, you have that space that's in between. Yeah, just move your cursor to the right.
Yeah,
it's right there. I thought that lot was part of the commercial or the business district because that's set up to be or zoned to be business.
That's a lot.
yeah. So you can see on this map, I believe I kind of drew this over the map, so there might be some minor discrepancies on there, but yeah, more or less it kind of follows this, where these, more vegetation is that wetland that's on here.
Yeah, so just up on the right where that, what's that road called, Elk Creek, there's
Okay.
what used to be it's the hot tub shop now, there's buildable space right there, and I believe that's business district.
So maybe a little further this way.
So just so everybody knows, this is one lot, it goes from here, and it runs down, and next, and goes across.
Oh.
So this is buildable, that's buildable.
Okay.
Well, but yeah, you can't build on the wetlands and stuff, you do the top part, yeah.
So for the purposes tonight,
Yeah,
it's not
No,
relevant, but yes, thank you for
Just
pointing
catching
out,
it.
like, yeah.
well, I hate to leave somebody out and have to do this.
Yeah. All right, I'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. Okay, so kind of getting into one of the first bigger ones, are these uses. So there's a lot of information on this page, but kind of the things to focus on is the ones that are highlighted in yellow. These are uses that in the code today, the business district and the overlay district allow them, but they have a different process to allow them. So, a lot of it is permitted uses in the business district, whereas in the overlay, they're conditional. And then the blue ones, or the ones highlighted in blue, are uses where they're allowed under some method in the business district, but they are prohibited or not listed in the overlay district. So again, yellow ones allowed in both, but different processes. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Will, so not listed means prohibited?
And that's kind of going back to the discussion you guys were having with the previous conditional use and the kind of discrepancy on there. So yeah, so not listed, or they're not in the use table as uses that are identified for that district or that overlay.
So they're not allowed then.
Yeah, and so that's the tricky part of this thing with like with the conditional use you guys just heard. But yeah, so that's kind of that gray area is where is where this part comes in. Just kind of keep in mind these, and I'll go ahead and move on to the next slide, which kind of gets into this. But there's other uses that are allowed in the district. They just all have the same exact methods of approval as the business district. So that's why the list is pretty short. This is our first kind of proposed idea for how to change the code when this new district is formed. Is essentially there are some permitted, conditional, and licensed uses that are identified in the B district that you're not allowed to do, or not listed in this RMU district or overlay district. So our recommendation would be to take those uses and then make them into conditional uses, with the one lone exception being marijuana dispensaries, which have a unique one, which is a licensed approval. And so maintaining that same licensed approval for those ones. And this is kind of one of the first things that we'd love feedback on, if there's some of these uses where it's a hard no-go and instantly a red stop sign for it. Those are ones that we can just talk about leaving off this list, and vice versa for including in that district.
So Will, I'm just gonna point out one thing with when you're deciding whether to include these uses or not. in the future, we may want to, before we adopt this ordinance to establish the new RMU district, is to think about if you want to keep the existing boundary of the RMU overlay the same as the new RMU district. Because there's an underlying business district on all of the properties right now. So you have the opportunity to rezone only some of the properties. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think you're on board, you were on board with this, right? I think the intention was to try to get more businesses with workforce housing or some kind of housing above it. So that
Mhm.
people didn't have to drive as many cars. I think however we can help accomplish that is the main goal. In my understanding, it was from the river to the railroad track on both sides of the highway. You know, some space in that kind of messy, but that was the original hope, that we'd be able to maybe get some residential density increases other than the 20 units per acre that we've stuck with since 1950.
Right. So
And then another thought that I had too is that, because within there are existing single family homes that have been there for quite some time. That those would be grandfathered in, for uses, but any new construction. So if you put out a lot in a new construction, would be subject to these new regulations.
they would, yes, and if you remove the single family use, even as a conditional use in the RMU district. Then those existing homes wouldn't be able to improve their homes or add on to them, basically like. what you just-
So, but if we want to be able to allow people to do that, to improve their homes. How do we address that?
The conditional.
You leave it as a conditional
Okay,
use.
gotcha. So they just have to go back there.
My question is. I understood what you were saying about, we have an opportunity basically to create a new district. Which is the Riverwalk District
Correct.
as a real district. And why wouldn't we make it all the areas that are now business? I mean, why wouldn't
Right.
you just overlay the whole thing? Because,
That's our original thought,
yeah,
but,
I mean,
Because-
what would be the reason that you wouldn't want to do that?
right, so the
This is
the-
what we saw tonight.
the only thing that I was thinking of is that. It seemed intentional to leave single family dwellings out of the RMU. Right, so if you want to leave them out, even as a conditional use. Then you might want to consider some of those farther properties
And I'll go ahead and go back to the map just so we
that
have a.
may. That may. I don't know. And I don't have as much history with the development of the zoning code and with the strategic plan, but I just happen to notice that. The strategic plan shows a smaller area for the Riverwalk district. Of course, that was established in 2016 and this new zoning code was established in 2018. So I'm guessing that the preference would be to go with. Using the overlay district as the boundary for the new RMU district.
That would be mine.
It's just something that I noticed and I thought would be good for discussion.
So what we might think, I mean, the history here is, of course, Parnell, you're familiar with this doing JD, I mean, my neighborhood there. This 3 blocks basically from, the, next street from Byers up is not Eisenhower, but, your street,
Buyers,
no,
there's no buyers.
it goes no. Okay,
Fires and then Eisenhower.
well, anyway, that piece of this district that's off the highway was residential.
Yeah.
And Jay Clough pushed to have his own business, and it
Right.
became his own business.
Gotcha.
And it's a residential neighborhood. Other than, we have a marijuana store now, and we have a few businesses, actually, I have a business out of my house for my contracting company. So, but changing the nature of that neighborhood, I think we want to encourage people to fix those houses up if they can. We want to encourage people to bring some more businesses into that neighborhood also. So maybe what we look at, that I know that over in the Riverwalk district, along Clayton Court, which is the heart of it, where we're trying to develop a Riverwalk. We don't want to see residential there, we want to see commercial. So maybe part of this RMU, we have residential as a conditional use, part of it we don't. That might be because pretty much the rest of this whole overlay district here is commercial already, so a few scattered houses here and there.
Right.
But pretty much the residential farm is this little neighborhood down where I'm at, so.
Is there a, just looking at how towns grow, you don't grow, you die, and you don't have enough business, you die, that's to try to get it down. Looking at fires and mills and up to Eisenhower, where there is residential housing, is there a mechanism that, is it a 5-year or a 10-year, you have 5 to 10 years where you fix up your house and that's why I see. After that, the next time you go to fix up your house, the first floor has to be commercial and you can add whatever you want to the top. Is there a way to do that or?
I have never seen that. in
Like a
code.
property rights, big time. And
Well, that's what I was thinking, so I'm just trying to see if there's other,
Yeah.
because if the goal really is to have more, because I'd like to have some commercial that's off the highway, 'cause
Yeah.
That's why the Clayton Court thing, I'm so in favor of that, I think it's a great place, because you actually get to get away from the highway for a change, right? So you're not listening to cars go by, you're sitting out having a cocktail or dinner or whatever.
That's why I pushed for Eisenhower for so long.
Yes.
One block area for off the highway.
Right.
Well, I think, Arnell, that, if you want to, try and maintain the property rights for the people who have single family homes and enable them to keep them as single family homes as long as they want.
Right.
But you also want to promote commercial. I think the conditional use is the best way to go. Keeping in mind that you will have to review those on a case by case basis. And that you need to keep in mind, these components of your comprehensive plan. That will kind of help direct your
Right.
decisions on granting them or not.
Right.
Because the reason they're conditional is because they're not automatic and they can be denied for cause, which would be they don't comply with your comprehensive plan.
So when the Crab family sells their home, do they have to sell it as the overlay? Or do they have any conditions that the zoning on that home, they can sell it to another single family?
Yes.
Okay.
That's part of the property rights, and I think and I won't speak for anybody, at the meeting with the trustees, I think there was the couple people who were against it, so really trying to promote commercial. But the majority are like, hey, property rights, you bought a house, you thought it was a house, you didn't know this overlay in the business district was going to cause that conflict. But I don't think that was the intention of it, and
No.
I don't think it was, that was
Yeah,
not the intention. Yeah. So I think this is a good solution to fix that out, and I like having its own district, because then everybody knows what it is, so that, I think that's.
The intent was to try and force commercial down along the river.
Yeah, promote it, stuff,
Yeah.
not so much forcing.
Well, but we were facing some lots that they're gonna sell, and they're gonna build some townhomes down there, maybe even a single family house.
Yes, correct.
And that would have taken out the heart of that Riverwalk district, and then probably been a little bit developed into what we hoped it was. So that's why I think maybe we parcel this out a little bit and look at specific areas where we've got vacant land along the river.
Right.
And we want to drive that type of development. Because there, if we keep it conditional, that, it's gonna be a lot of pressure on the board to say, I don't want it more commercial, I want a 3-story apartment.
Right.
Well,
So that,
Go ahead.
I think that would be difficult, potentially difficult for the board to deny if it's an existing single family home. If it's if it's a development of a vacant lot, which a lot of that stuff
Yes,
is on the planning board,
sure.
then I think it's easy for the board to point to the comprehensive plan and say, that's not the goal of the city. We have this established plan, and part of the conditional use permit is being in compliance with the comprehensive. The comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
So,
is it worth somewhere in there being able to mention existing residential?
well, the non-conforming use section of the code will cover that. Because it's in an already established use, so. That's just baked into the code when you make the zoning change.
so would a trigger be like, if someone would come in and trigger you have to do business? if somebody said, okay, I got a single family house, now I want to put a fourplex on it, and you keep the single family, and I'm just gonna add 3 more units to it. Would that trigger it to go back to, oh, wait, you gotta go to the new rule, which says commercial on the lower floor, and then you can do 3 units on top.
So if it had frontage on Highway 40 or Clayton Court, yes, it would.
Just on the, to the
Yeah.
frontage on fires, that it wouldn't trigger, it, we can still say, yeah, you put in a triplex or fourplex.
So long as it meets all the other regulations of the code.
The reason I asked that is we need housing just as much as we need.
Sure.
I don't want to give that up and say, well, to get the housing, you have to put commercial. There's no businesses coming in, because now it's been done by.
Right.
computers, right?
No.
Look at the project we've got going now. I mean, we've got ground floor commercial and 20 units.
Right,
So.
right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Well, I think you can continue.
Yeah.
Now.
Yep. Yeah, and we can, after we get through, we can always jump back to any once we've kind of gotten the whole picture as well. So the next slide, and I won't fault you if you don't want to read all these words. There are a lot of them. But this is currently what your code has for density and density bonuses in the overlay district as it exists today. Essentially, the way it reads is that you have the business district's underlying 20 dwelling units per acre is what you're allowed to have. But if you do these affordable housing, you can get up to 60 units per acre. And I didn't put the criteria in there because it just kind of made this a little more confusing. But basically, if you meet those affordable housing criteria, you can get up to the 60. And then the bottom one is a similar in nature piece that was for the medium density single family residential zoning district, which was the portions along Clayton Court that got rezoned. So the bottom half of this slide really at the moment doesn't actually apply to any property in the city at all, or in the town at all. It's purely just the top portion. So getting into kind of the proposed change, this one is a pretty simple one. At the end of the day, it shouldn't really have a difference. But the first part would be removing these references to the business district and the MDSF, or the medium density single family. That way the district is its own standalone area. The next one would be having that 20 dwelling unit, base density established as the base density for this district, the same as the business district. And then the last part would be reestablishing those same, triggers and opportunities for those density bonuses that you currently have in your Riverwalk overlay district.
Yeah, on the density bonuses, what qualifies as workforce housing? Does it have to be like the LIHTC, or do we have a different standard for that?
Yeah, here I can. So
If you don't have it, it's we can catch it.
yeah, I can pull it up and take a look at it. But it essentially has like 4 criteria to meet for it. Let me see real quick.
For the business districts, it's like what happened with Coast Lake, and there was a deed restriction requirement for
Right.
2 of the units.
That was 80%.
Well, it was 20% deed restriction. Yeah.
Right, but the AMI.
Oh, and there is an
So
AMI
it's-
requirement also, yes.
Yeah, so it's 80% to be a affordable housing unit. It's targeting that 80% AMI, and then 20% of the development being deed restricted. Is what you're is the gist of the criteria at the moment.
Yeah, that's fine. I just know there's a lot of higher end people that would like to live up here, but they can't find a place to live either, so. And again, they don't want to buy, they like live here, but they don't want to buy.
Right. Okay. Go ahead and move on. All right, so the next one is, this is again, this slide is your existing code as it is today for the overlay. So the first part is talking about residential uses shall not exceed 75% of the gross land area in a mixed use development. And I think this has good intentions, but it has some possible, troubles with the way it's currently worded. Because for instance, if somebody wanted to build a multifamily apartment building, they could build that whole thing at the moment as residential. That's not a problem. But if, say, they are on a nice corner and they want to do a 1,000 square foot little coffee shop on the corner, suddenly now they're mixed use and they are required to meet 25% commercial. So it almost offers kind of a disincentive for people wanting to do small amounts of commercial in their structures, and pushes them to this 25% line, which and we'll kind of get into the commercial areas and requiring commercial in a minute. But for this portion, there's kind of this gray area where some people might want to do commercial and get disincentivized to not do it because of the amount they have to put in. So that's kind of the question mark or idea for this first one that might need some tweaking. And then the second portion of your existing code is about design criterias and how property should function. So this talks about put the parking in the back, activate those street frontages, and things of that nature, and give the area a consistent feeling, and that pedestrian walkability features. So I'll go and jump to the proposed, and then we can see what you guys think. But the first part, as I mentioned, that's that disincentive part, is to remove this requirement that attaches itself to mixed use, and 75%, and instead maybe consider first being establish a ground floor commercial requirement for all properties on Highway 40 and Clayton Court. So this would mean that if you want to develop on one of these properties, there needs to be that ground floor commercial. It has to be a part of or a component of your building. So if you wanted to do 3 floors of commercial, that's fine. But if you wanted to do, a residential building, you're going to need to put some ground floor commercial in there. And kind of the next part is, an either or and that is how much commercial do you want, and how do you want people to get there? So the first, two kind of common options are a distance from the road or a percentage of the building. So a distance from the road could be anything that's within 75 feet of the front of the property line or the right of way, needs to be commercial, and then anything beyond that, you're fine to do what you want. Or you could do a certain percentage where you say 50 or 75% needs to be commercial, and then you can do what you want with the rest of it. Both of them have their kind of pros and cons to them. For deeper properties, the first one could get into tricky situations where people push the buildings back, which could get into some issues with how you handle these conditional uses as they go forward. And then percentage, could have tricky issues with the much larger buildings and things like that. So there's not really a perfect answer on either of those, but and open it up to any thoughts on these changes.
Yes, on the eastern loop that kind of comes around and goes around the new development being done in the current dispensary.
Mhm.
Most of those owners are good or okay with in the future having that. Front part of that property being commercial. The issue we're having is that the current alley in the back has been blocked by Hilly's trucks. He poured dirt without permission back in the day, and then some of the companies are lining up the alley with dumpsters now, so it's hard. I live on these things, so it's right in my backyard. So we noticed that that's blocking the alleyway. We'll be talking with enforcement code officer here this week, but so that's one of the things that we need to make sure the alleys are open so people can have the commercial in the front, so they can put all the cars coming in from the back of the building. Which is better, I think it's a better way to do it, but I know most of the owners on Easton, they like the idea of the Riverwalk overlay because they wanted to have more commercial and more housing along that loop. Being one of them.
Call that code enforcement officer, so fire hazard,
Yeah.
right? The fire truck can't get,
There's a
well, I
lot,
guess they don't use the alley, but
Yeah.
just access, it's,
Well,
it sounds
yeah.
dangerous.
Yeah.
So you'd like to include Easton. In terms of naming, and I was thinking Eisenhower also.
Yeah.
I think Eisenhower needs to be named on that.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Because we want to pursue that. In most of this, I mean, there's a lot of little shops that are opening up, like our front house that we have 2 houses, but the front part. We're planning on making that commercial, but right now we're using the housing because the business that's on it can't find anywhere to put their people, so. We've been stuck with them we're not stuck, but happy to help them out. We've been working with them for about 5 years now, as they're trying to find a new place to move their workers. But we don't want their business to have to shut down because they can't find a place for the workers.
I'd like to say one thing that I know the board has discussed in this district is ADA units being allowed to be on that bottom floor so that they don't have to put elevators in because of that cost.
Good call. That's
So
good.
that would lean towards using a percentage rather than the distance
From the road. Okay.
That's in the temple. The requirements for ADA.
But you're possibly zoning them out, and sit, getting it over for actually commercial.
Actually, I think two of the units that they're designating, as their affordable housing units are on the ground floor.
Mhm.
Right,
Right,
Yeah,
and they're also handicapped.
yeah, and they're handicapped accessible. I just thought about that, so I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
And I know a lot of the neighbors in there, seeing how, I know, there's a lot of black percent, it's not a lot in public. But with Victoria Village being the 55-foot height, variance or permission to do that, they're all also saying, well, why can't we do it?
I don't think we're introducing that change for this.
It will be requested by other people show it. So it might be something we want to plan for the future or think about.
It certainly is up for discussion. It's up to you guys. I mean,
Yeah, I'd like to keep it at 45 at this point, and leave that down there.
Then these red properties too, it seems like they could extend farther down. 40 to the south along the west side of the highway. Grand Mountain. Tankers is a big commercial lot next to it. And then another, I think there's another lot, isn't there? I know you were just saying by behind the car. But they decided to.
Right.
so are you talking about below that green triangle that's
Yeah.
on one side?
This is Ground Mountain Bank here.
So I don't believe that those properties have the overlay district on them right
They
now.
don't, that's right, they don't, they're just business, so, that's right,
Yeah, like
But these are all part of the existing overlay district.
yes, exactly. That's what we're talking
the lot next to the Holiday Inn. If you would like the driver, he should come in if you bill, you would request the Holiday Inn at 47 feet. So technically it's above the 45 foot. Already. So that's why people are saying, hey, wait, we've got buildings on each end of us that are 55 and 47, we're starting at 45, why is that? Now they're seeing what's happening.
Yeah, well, actually, now is a good time, I think, to maybe discuss it. I don't know how everybody feels about that, but if we're gonna create this new district and there's a possibility that there is consensus that you want to change that standard. If the decision can be made during this
Right.
process,
So that's
then-
what it's for. So that's what we're doing.
yeah,
Because, you know, when they do the arts facility, they're probably gonna ask for 55-foot height variance as well, once they figure out how much it takes for the art and then to put the housing with it, right? So that's gonna be, I can see that coming when people ask for a height variance on that as well.
yeah,
I'm just looking, I'm trying to look 20 years down the road, 50 years down the road, and people are sitting there saying, hey, why are we starting at 45 feet and everybody else is 55?
I mean. Just
Yeah,
kind of contemporaneously,
Yeah,
I think
sure.
it's because the Riverwalk district is supposed to feel close and pedestrian friendly
Yes.
and kind of smaller scale than vehicular, you know.
Right.
Area.
Right, exactly, and that's the other question. In that area, do we want to minimize parking spaces so the residents would find a garage parking or find a town-owned parking lot that they would park in and walk to their houses, so it keeps less cars going in and out of the roads. Because with the amount of traffic we go on US 40 now, you can sit at the stop signs for 20 minutes waiting for the gap, or we've had 6 accidents where people have been broadsided trying to get across one road and missed the car slowed down, the other car jumped out in front and hit it. So it's not, and that's over a couple of years, not just last week. I wouldn't say there's been 6 months, that wasn't this last week, it's been over several years. And so that traffic congestion is to limit that, if you have less parking over there, it sounds weird, but if you have less parking for the residentials, then those cars, the residential people won't be trying to get out as much.
But if you also have less density over there. then you would be able to do that. Yeah, those units.
Well, less
It's
units.
protected at 45 minutes.
The less unit means your workers are gonna have to drive into work and park somewhere. Instead of walking to work. That's why we talked about higher density in our core of our commercials, so people could walk to work instead of drive to work. Right? I mean, if the Jetsons would just hurry up and get us our flying cars. So that,
Yeah, Scotty.
so when you think about it, Denver did the same thing, they got rid of the parking requirements in downtown Denver, and what that did is made all the residents have to figure out somewhere else to park their cars.
Well, I hear it's
Or get rid of them.
horrible.
Well, there's a lot of horrible things
Super
about it.
challenging for people. who live there. It's quite amazing.
Well, the paid parking lots help with that, and the no overnight parking, and no 24-hour parking helps. And that's. When you're thinking about it, it sounds like, oh, we're trying to punish the residents that live here. Well, we're not, we're trying to make it easier for them, so. You can walk to work, you can take the bus, you don't have to own a car anymore. You don't, if you have a car, we should have a big section where we have a big parking lot. Right, which in the future, we may not need, because I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of younger people aren't getting a driver's license because it's cheaper and easier to use an Uber than owning a car. It's just now they become limited to how far they can go from the house.
And shared cars too.
And shared cars and all that kind of stuff, right?
And Breckenridge has solved this too by that outlying parking garages and parking meters in town are programmed to
Right,
be more expensive during busy times, so employees don't drive home.
right, and there's a company, and I think they were called I-Units. They were building one in Boulder and one in Denver. I don't know if they ever got off the ground because they had some complications. The idea is they had cars there was 4 cars for every 50 units, and if you needed a car, you could rent the car for the day or the week, go to the month. Right, and take one of those cars and drive it somewhere, so then, when you want to go on vacation, you were doing something, or you had to go to the hospital, you had a car you could take and go. And that's something I would like to see, because I think it makes more sense.
Yeah.
And it helps because you don't have to own a car then, because it's expensive.
And if you do want parking, you have to pay for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed, but cars are about as expensive as the first house that we all bought. So, you know. Right.
kind of straining here a bit, for sure, so.
Well, I'm just trying I'm trying to think through some of the stuff that we're looking at, what. Right, 'cause if we don't start talking about it and have the discussion, then we end up with. And I don't think it was a bad plan, we just missed some things as we rushed through it instead of
Yeah, no, absolutely.
thinking
Fair enough.
through it.
That's good thought. And Will is gonna talk about next steps
Yeah.
when he gets through his
Exactly.
presentation, but just as a preview, we will come back to you with a draft code.
Yes.
That you can have before the meeting, the week before the meeting, and digest and make recommendation changes or whatever, and then we will prepare that final draft to go to the board, and they may have revisions also. So
Yeah,
there's
and-
time.
yeah, and I'm bringing this up now so we can start thinking about it, and you
Yeah.
guys can talk about it.
Yeah.
Baseline can have some time to think about it.
One other thing I'm just gonna throw out there is Clayton Court, we're not gonna. I don't think we're gonna get people to make turns in and out. I think we need that connector road from Safeway. across.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
We've got, I think somehow we've got to incentivize that, make that happen, you know, there's Rutland there.
Yes, I'm working with the owner now to come up with a plan, see how we can incentivize.
Okay,
He's a good friend of mine.
Oh, good.
But
okay, good, 'cause
you
that,
must have put 8 units there, and I got him not to do that, so
that road will be huge.
we have each plan.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank
Make
you.
us look. Okay,
Okay.
go ahead, Will.
Yeah, and I think that might be the end, but let's double check. It's been a while since I wrote it. Yep. So next steps, which Julie mentioned, is our goal is to have a draft code revisions to you guys at the August 23rd meeting, and then have fix anything that you guys see in there, and then bring that to the Board of Trustees on September 6th. And then, as I mentioned, we've kind of talked about what this boundary of the, once the new district is established, actually rezoning those underlying business or that business zone district to this RMU. So that'll be a process that goes on after the first part is completed.
The proposed map will be useful for the definitions, because we go back to the other one that shows that existing overlay. Versus. So.
This one?
Yeah, so. This change to the RMU. Would just blanket all of the current commercial or business district, is that correct?
Just.
No, just the overlay set portion of the
It's the
business.
overlay section. Because like I said, there's portions that we might want to reevaluate.
I still think we ought to have a discussion about. The conditional use is good, but it is it does become an open door, depending on pressure on boards, different boards. And I think we've got two different areas here in this RMU. We've got generally the whole area, except for the area from it's still to be the area from the alley between Eisenhower and Byers south, which is a single family neighborhood right now, and has the potential to slowly work into a commercial area, but I think we need to keep a conditional on the use there, but I wonder about having a conditional use for the rest of it.
Okay.
Or there needs to be something stronger that gives more guidance. I know there's lots of ways that a board can say that this has to be commercial, but keeping that conditional residential use, I don't know, that is a door that's hard for boards to deal with in many cases, so.
Okay, so with that in mind, we should look at the other uses that are not listed in the RMU district as well.
Yeah.
See if we want to restrict those from being conditional
Didn't seem
in
like
specific areas.
there are the mobile or the RV parks, obviously, that you can restate. Yeah, don't see any opportunity for RV parks because there's no density there. Schools, I don't know, schools are they're becoming a lot of different things. You know, there could be an opportunity for some kind of trade school or art school and that sort of thing that they fit well within this.
Right.
So I haven't seen the other ones that really jump out. The industrial uses, again, that can be workshops, you know, it says here that small industry, but where do you draw that line between the two? And we've talked in the past about, like Breckenridge does, they've got art vacations, you know, and do it type vacations we talked about for that whole yard. So I don't know, the industrial could be a unique use that could fit well within this too, I don't know, so. The only one that jumps out is maybe is the RV park.
But this says, public schools, so that doesn't prohibit someone from coming in with a commercial, application for schooling. For instance, a trade school people could go to, or, you know, at Victoria Village, we're promoting a daycare center there, which is kind of like a school, so.
Right, and private school is conditional in both the business and the current overlay.
But why couldn't East Grand School District do something down there? You know, what's the difference between a public and a private school? And it could be sponsored by our public school system.
Yeah.
So you say they're both on there, it's just these are the only ones that you identified.
These are the ones that conflict.
Right.
The only one I see that would be X would be RV park. I haven't seen the other ones. Well, not only repair possibly, but
Okay.
So we have
Well,
We already have all.
we have
Would
not
we-
repair sheet.
two of them.
Sorry, I accidentally stopped sharing my screen. I hit escape. Let me I'll get it back in just a
We're
second.
just talking about what could be Xed. Yeah.
and we have time
Right.
to think about that, because when we prepare the draft, it will have all of the uses that are. Permitted, conditional, or licensed. And so it will be easier to make those determinations on any public school and private school, because they'll all be included in the table.
Are changing the business district public school to conditional.
So we're not changing anything about the business
Okay.
district.
All right,
This is
RME.
what the draft amendment will look like is an amendment to the RMU overlay district.
Yeah.
And basically we'll take out the word overlay. And then we'll make these adjustments that we talked about tonight for uses and for the density and the density bonuses. And we'll make those adjustments within the existing overlay district section of the code.
okay,
So it will just be like, it will be a simultaneous elimination of the overlay district with the establishment of the standard
So-
district.
Well, we have-
So it won't be an overlay,
we have-
it will be a standalone district.
But the standard district that you're gonna create will not encompass all of the area of the RMU as it exists overlay now, as it exists as an overlay now.
Well,
Because
that's
we're
what
gonna
we
redraw
were,
those boundaries,
well, that's what we were talking about.
because
So
some of
we'll-
it, we
if you
may
go
want
back
to
to
just
that.
leave business. And other places we want it to be
So if it's
standardized.
existing business without the overlay right now,
Mhm.
that property won't be affected by this.
But where they overlay, or where they overlap each other, we have to decide where to draw the line for the standard district.
Right, because the overlay will come off. There'll be an
Yes.
in-between time where this map will look like this,
Okay.
and the Victoria Village overlay will stay. Everything else will just be business.
Right.
And so we will have this new district that exists, but doesn't apply to any properties until we rezone some of the properties to RMU. It won't be RMU overlay.
RMU becomes its own.
Yes.
Yes.
That's
I like
Becomes a new zone.
So that's what we were talking about earlier. What properties do we want to zone RMU?
Right.
All of these that have the current overlay? Or
Right.
a different boundary?
Right.
it may need to be case by case.
Well, you don't want to do a case by case, you want to do, so for example, you said we want to do Dock City, which runs between. That comes around, the Divide condominiums, goes up past Andy's house. You wouldn't want to say all of that would be RMU because you have so much residential in there already. But you do have a church, you have the bank. You have Andy's house, you have the Clayton's old house, right, and you're coming up about 50, but you'd say a portion of that. You draw a line at this, at Fires, for example, at Fires, it cuts off. That is RMU, and how many houses back do you go? Is it just the ones, they like we did on Clay, the river, the river, property and US 40. So that could be a road that says, okay, the first floor has to be commercial, or at least 25%, whatever we decide to do, has to be commercial, and then you have residential. But that allows all the houses, to Andy's point, all the houses that exist there, and say single family houses, we don't have to deal with that every time they go to change.
Yeah.
You take it out of the business district.
Oh, you're on the district.
Yeah, just as an idea, just throwing something out that we're not talking about, so open your mind a little bit of what we look at. And so if you take the time to walk around the town, walk up and down each road a little bit, we can all look at it and say, okay, where do you want to shop? Because a dog kennel, which, we need one because I heard the random one's going away. But the problem is the dogs bark for so long and they bark all night. And every time they hear a siren, they start barking. And so that's why people are saying, hey, we don't want the kennel around us anymore. And since it's a non-conforming use, get it out. So if you,
But basically zones, you want zones to be large, and was spot zoning is called, you just don't want to
yeah,
create enclaves in another zone, so.
that's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everywhere that where the river walk mixed use, they're conditional mixed use. And that. Those areas. This map up there.
The hatch, sure.
And some people have their houses, but they, like the one on the corner just off the side where that. We ran the water line to the house, it's actually out of the town of Fraser, whatever that deal was. The house, it's 238 Fires Avenue. We ran the water line to that. Well, that house in the back there,
Mary Clarkson.
Mary Clarkson.
Yeah.
The White House there, it has people living in it, but it's basically a laundry facility at this point, from what I can tell, because that's all they do is laundry coming in. I see two people living there and the truck.
Property management.
Yeah, the trucks are coming in all the time because it's its own business, so they use it as both. So since they're already using it, it's that we want to draw the line. So it's front facing on Fires and up Dock Suzie. On US 40, so Fisher stays in, the gas station stays in. Go down Eisenhower to the train tracks, that would all be part of it, so you make a line fit within that looping. It'd be bubbles or something, right? Just be loop. It wouldn't have, they don't have to be straight lines, you can loop around things to make it fit, so that we're not causing anybody that wants someone to fix the house, I mean, there's something different.
They should follow property lines.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, roads are property lines, no, I didn't mention
Okay.
this. We're-
Not right through,
Yeah.
like, this half is zoned this and
Yes,
this, no,
yes,
we don't want,
thanks for clarification.
yeah, okay.
And roads are better too, I mean,
Yes, following the roads is,
Yeah.
right.
roads are ours. So,
So Will, can you go back to the slide that defines residential mixed use?
mixed use, Riverwalk mixed use.
Oh, is it Riverwalk mixed use, not residential? That's what I was thinking.
Oh,
RMU mixed use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this the slide you're looking for? Or,
Yeah, I was confusing myself. I was thinking RMU was residential mixed.
No, river.
There's like-
yeah, Riverwalk mixed use.
And commercial on the bottom.
And it's beyond the Riverwalk, it's downtown, basically, we're trying to define the nature of downtown.
Do we want a different name for it? Never mind, sorry.
Well,
Well,
I'm
it's
just
just
trying
an
to think
acronym, RMU makes me think, oh, residential mixed use. So it's where we're talking residential on top, mixed use on the bottom. Commercial, anyway.
Well,
that
it's for
would
the
be-
Riverwalk district. So I think
Okay.
Riverwalk should stay,
Okay,
and we could just call it the Riverwalk district, I guess.
Could be called a downtown district, because that's really what we're doing here.
Well-
Much of this district is downtown.
I like the river walk because it gives you the idea that this is a walking part of town. and you should walk
Yeah.
around that way.
yeah,
And I don't know who originally came up with it, but when they said that, I was like, oh, that's perfect, that's exactly what we want. you to
Because that's
do,
what we want, part of the vision.
Yeah. Part of it.
Okay.
So do you prefer River Walk District
I do,
I do.
as opposed to River
Great.
Walk mixed
Okay.
use?
Yeah.
And I'll try to remember that it's for the rock and not residential.
Because I think I can use it, because I think I need to regional, let's use possibly. Because, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still learning all the acronyms.
This is defining a commercial core Fraser.
Yes, correct.
So,
I think some people we want to spread out away from the highway with the commercial.
Yeah.
No,
Eisenhower and Fraser Ave. Could also be I mean, there's the commons there, but there's the Fishers and the winery.
So I'm taking notes on your
Yeah.
suggestions, so we can get them into the draft.
Thank you.
That section.
And I just want to, so we suggested Highway 40, Clayton Court. The Parnell suggested Eastham and Eisenhower. And are we adding buyers?
like be a possibility because there's already some commercial and lives right on that corner. So we don't
I kind of, it seems like the business zone fits our neighborhood better than this Riverwalk.
Okay,
Maybe just a.
let's see, but we're getting rid of business,
Well, the business,
right?
No,
That's not confusing.
no, the business district still allows all these use cases, but
Okay.
it doesn't restrict, it doesn't keep us from. The Riverwalk mixed use district drives lower for commercial.
And incentives,
Right.
gotcha,
Right.
all right.
And so.
So we're gonna have two districts.
Commercial and one-story residential neighborhood. Maybe eventually, but all those things can happen still in our neighborhood.
So Fraser Ave,
Yeah,
it
so,
would be nice to drive it there, but.
so. Just to clarify. This, the ground floor commercial is something that we're planning to make a requirement
yes. Right,
for those properties that front those streets.
in the RV district,
It doesn't mean that you can't do it anywhere else,
right here, Katie, yeah.
so I have,
but it requires you to do it. So you wouldn't be able to have a single fam or a fully residential on the ground floor 100%.
But just in this map.
So even an existing use would be in violation.
Yes,
Okay.
Only if they change it. You can't come,
well, it would be illegal non-conforming,
right,
right? So when they want to redevelop it, then it has to become conforming.
and I don't, on this map that you're showing this requirement. Right here, I don't know that there's any buildings in there that would be non-conforming,
Which one?
right here, this map here, Katie,
current data.
yeah. I think everything there is commercial. So,
More vacant.
or vacant, right,
And the other one that I'll throw out there in the base, it's been brought up by several people, in fact, they have like. You, Fraser, and that's when the people coming on the train. Railroad Avenue, do we want to make something there, which. Then where do we want to make, is it from Eisenhower up? Is it from Byers up? And then do we? Holyard's not in Fraser yet, is it? There's no next, we can't do anything with that.
but right now, though, the RMU district covers that area along the railroad. Not far now,
Only on,
on the east side. Okay.
yeah, only on the top. North side doesn't have, according to this map.
Well, I know, but the RMU district itself, this
Oh,
map just tells. us-
Yeah, so the RMU district, if you can see my mouse, yeah, it goes, Park Avenue is the top or is the north.
Yeah.
The railroad avenue is the west.
Okay,
It goes down to Mill on the south and then kind of, meanders back up to 40 and then it comes, meanders over to Clayton Court, which is the eastern boundary.
yeah, and I think Mill is, I agree with Andy, I think Mill is dipping too far because most of that's residential.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a cutoff maybe Byers, but that's my opinion.
I think
So maybe keep this portion, that business district. Is that what you're,
Well,
Same.
actually, it's north. And actually, well, if you go to the alley. The alley north of Byers. Everything from that alley south is right now is residential, other than the. pot
Okay.
store.
Right.
And now we've got a laundry operation, but that's, yeah. So,
Right, the rest of it.
but all that's allowed in the business.
Yeah,
That doesn't restrict any of that from
Right.
happening or more than that.
so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Leave that so it is, so they're not illegally using it.
Well, if somebody comes in like, next to tonight, it wouldn't be a problem.
Right,
Right.
right.
Just improving this house, so.
correct. No, I think that,
Can I ask about, these houses over here that are behind Leg will be part of that downtown corridor? Where do you guys see those houses? Because eventually I'm assuming they'll probably get scraped and rebuilt, whatever is there. So if they're not a part of this, new district, that's single family homes that are allowed,
well, that's why.
right?
It's
So,
business zone also.
So these would still be in that district. And yeah, apologies for this. So this map is just purely for this requiring ground floor commercial. So these would still be in that district. This ground floor commercial just wouldn't be that requirement as a mandatory piece that they have to do.
unless you added Doc Suzy to the list of streets.
That's on the RMU, that's in the RMU then.
Well, can you show the RV map again?
It is.
Here, and maybe I can, let me see if I can do a little edit real quick for us.
The RMU did, did take in those sentences. So.
All right.
Because the RMU goes to the.
Thanks, well, that was
Yeah.
nice.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
That helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the houses on the east on there. 400 is now a road. 404, a little greenhouse. 408's used to be visual. Marcus, the
Videos, Michael.
I should come back. Well, so I would say these now, that's great. And then I think 416 is now going to be the barrel room storage for the distillery. And then the other one's the garage that they use as a garage. So the only ones that aren't, it's 408 and 404, they're the only ones that aren't business. And then 426 used to be a business. And now it's a single family house again. Well, it started as a single family house, became a business. Back, now it's the same thing. But I didn't let used to be a bar. I swear I ran from the cops.
Bennigan's.
I do like this I really do like this concept of focusing the ground floor commercial along places along the river and along the highway, so. Seems like a good concept.
And then it'd be conditional use for anybody in that district to fix their house. In the RMU district, if they want to fix their rural.
So what you guys have suggested is that we would keep single family homes as a conditional use in the RMU district.
Yeah. I just don't want to take, if it's already a single family home, I don't want to force somebody to. Oh, I need a new roof. Well, now you got to jack up your house.
Well, that would never happen. Well, it would happen if they had a single family home on Clayton Court or on Highway 40.
Correct. But the rest.
We don't have any single family.
That's the rest of the land. Okay. Thank you. Close.
Okay, I
Cool.
think we're ready to draft an amendment. Yeah.
So is the one skinny little yellow building, that's a single family home, isn't it? It's not a business.
That's behind Castle there.
But right on 40, right at the Narrows.
Oh,
across from the gas
right.
station.
Oh,
Yeah,
right. But
240.
that's actually property management now too.
Is
Even
it?
one at the fireplace, I don't know, it comes out of the
Yeah.
sidewalk. Well, there's a house next door to it too.
Yeah, the yellow.
It's a house. So.
Yes, 240 and 280 have businesses. They may turn into a house. I walk by it. But those do definitely, I think, if they want to fix them, they should have to. So the entrance store town, they should be business.
Yeah.
Commercial. And hopefully not laundry mat, something.
And this will be a public process. It will be
Right.
notified, so. Okay. Anything else? Good workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
We go and stop sharing my screen. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Will.
Any items under other business?
Just making sure that we, if we do this, we have our alleyway open.
Yeah.
And we look at our connectivity and why, some stuff was done back in the day where it broke off, some solar townhomes. That road is no longer an accessible road for some reason. It used to be the road that went from Easton over to Park Avenue. And that got taken out when they put that.
Most of that right away is still there. for now.
It's there, but I don't know why it's broke off.
You look on part of partial view, we need to have some tough conversations. Margaret's not here tonight, so we shouldn't have those
No,
conversations quite yet, but.
yeah, but that,
But
road connectivity, we should start,
Mhm.
looking at that, figuring out.
Yeah.
Because the less we have to get on the highway, locally, the better we're off, right?
Are you talking about providing additional connectivity or just reopening closed connectivity?
Reopening closed
Same
connectivity.
thing.
I'm not in the eminent domain and taking people's property.
No, but we've got some opportunities on the east side of the highway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So I don't think that's a planning function, it's more of a
Yeah. I don't know.
code enforcement.
Yeah, I don't know. Well,
but no,
Well,
but no, it is because,
and
because,
Because we don't have the roads.
Well, to get the existing roads open.
no,
But-
these aren't existing roads. These are roads. Part of the right of way exists, the whole thing doesn't. There's a gate across one road in town. It's not a code enforcement, it was allowed them through the subdivision process.
so,
So this is gonna take some fairly heavy lifting.
so back, this is Easton.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't, I knew how to share this to you, I would, but this is Easton.
So we're by the post office, basically.
And
it's not
this
the
was
top.
originally a
Yeah.
road that was supposed to go straight across here and connect over to Park Avenue. And then this road is supposed to go down along the back of this building or down through here and go through. But when they put in the developments, they made them private. Somehow they made them so that this HOA, and these buildings, shut this
I
road
see.
off right here.
So this would be a good workshop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's an existing, what should be a public road on private property.
Well, I think it was a public road, and the mayors will be back in the day. Fix things, they could have a better development.
Well, and if you look on parcel view, there's one piece that way. that's it, too. So,
Yes,
anyway,
Does this connect here?
yeah, you can drive right through there. I mean, there's a chain
there's a
there,
chain across it. So, yeah,
Right,
and then Quell Drive back up, there's a whole different story, they do the same.
okay, so I don't know how you get those property owners to just give you right of way.
Right, I don't know either, but if we look at it, maybe it is still right of way and people just put a chain across one day.
It doesn't look like compared to on that map.
Yeah, I know.
it's gonna be a tough conversation, but we're about to develop 200 units in that neighborhood. So,
Right, that's,
There is the eminent domain.
Right.
If we want the right of way bad enough and we want the roads bad enough, then we gotta do the tough things.
Well, but we can, yeah. So anyway, that's a good workshop.
so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had a question. The next step,
road. Stop
she's
there.
gonna come back with, you're gonna come back next meeting
Yes,
with,
in August.
yeah, okay,
It will be a draft
mhm,
code amendment.
okay,
And it will be, it will be a marked up, crossed out items and bolded items. Crossed out means that's coming away, bolded, and we'll probably prepare a separate revision, so that you can read it straight through, we'll make the changes and then keep that and make a separate one where we accept them all, so you can
and you're
compare.
gonna show the boundaries of what is going to remain business zone
Not
and.
at this time, that's something to discuss. So we're not doing the rezoning will come in the second step. After we establish this zone district,
Okay.
but I want you guys to think about,
I thought we were talking about how you draw the boundary lines for the Riverwalk district.
Well, part of the way that we draw those packages is we define this. And we've got boundary lines now for our, which is starting. As we look at how we define this, and like we talked about tonight, the nature of these neighborhoods. We make sure it fits the nature of the neighborhood. And so the first step is to define. So,
Okay.
Let me not be sales. So,
Yeah,
yeah, just.
I mean, we can have maps available so that as you go through, you can compare what the existing RMU overlay is.
Yes.
And then consider, okay, well, this is gonna be the new district.
Right.
And does that make sense for all of these properties?
Okay.
Or not?
Okay, I got it. That's good.
Okay. Any other business part out that you?
Nope. That's it.
Angela, we had a email discussion. We've got a sidewalk that is open. It's not fenced in front of Casa. Information.
No, and I rode my bike over there today and I couldn't even get on that sidewalk and I almost got run over by a car.
Well, they moved all the fences.
They moved the fences, but they still have the closure that you can't get on to it from Fraser Avenue onto the sidewalk.
We can buy most of it. I don't know, something.
Some of it.
Because the crosswalk by Fisher's comes across the street and gets you onto that messed up sidewalk. There's no fence or anything.
Yeah.
And then heading towards the post office, the fence comes out to the street again.
Yeah,
So maybe we could reach out to them and just see if we can. It's wonderful if we could start using that sidewalk, it'd be great, because it's so difficult to get down the east side of US 40.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway.
Yep. Talk to the developer and see if they could reopen that.
If they could, it'd be wonderful.
Yeah,
Or at least for the weekend for the mural festival.
yeah.
Well, part of the problem, okay, is half the concrete's missing and there's drops like this into the gravel. But it's all sitting there, all open basically now. Because all the fences got moved back into the area. So,
I still think they have the signage though at each end telling people that the sidewalk is closed, even though you could technically maybe get on there. I think they still don't want you on there.
Yeah,
wow,
but in case tools for.
I know, but I don't know. If it's-
Yeah.
The
But yeah.
fences kept you out of there, not the
Yeah.
fences you want. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not very clear as to what's supposed to happen there. Okay. Any other business?
And we do adjourn.
All in favor? Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Great, yep, thank you all.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.